Hi, welcome back to another episode of On the Town with Tanya. I'm your host, and we thank you for coming back again. Tonight's guest is a San Jose, California-based comic. She produces the CCC Comedy Show and is the CEO and overlord of Bango Productions. I said it wrong. Bangery Productions. Please welcome the lovely Cynthia In Public. Hi.
Hi. Hello. Hello, Internet.
Hello. I know. Hello, Zoom people. Hello. Yes, this is awesome. I'm actually loving this pandemic because then I can dress up from the waist up. And guess what? When I ask people to be on the show, no one could say no because I'm like, what are you doing? What are you really doing? It's a Zoom, people. You can schedule it in, right? There's no flights to miss, and they're only sitting for about 28 minutes. Come on, So first, how are you doing in this pandemic?
It's been up and down. I think the best thing is I'm just hanging in there. Really,
hanging in there. I always tell my sister-in-law used to say that when I was there. Like, I'm really sad. She'd be like, "Oh, hang in there." I was like, "Black people don't hang in. We don't hang up. We don't hang out." We do, but okay, I like that. So you do comedy. Tell me, what is the first funny influence that made you think about comedy as a career?
Definitely my family. I was originally born in Cameroon, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's comedy built into our culture and in all of our interactions, right? I have 4 older brothers and a sister, and I grew up being roasted by them, so it just definitely gave me a lot of practice in comedy. And whenever we got together as a family, there was always someone acting out a story or telling something. I don't know. I think comedy was very big part of my life growing up. It is also a way that I've used to deal through traumas and hard times. Mm-hmm. So I'd always had to go let me try. I always want to be an open micer. I didn't necessarily think of being a comedian, but let me try an open mic. And then I tried one. Let me do another, and then another. And then I took a long break, and then I came back about a year ago, and then I really got into comedy. I would say probably about a year ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've only been doing it 1 year. I tried it a few times 5 years ago.
Oh God. What was it? What was it like the first time you ever heard silence at a mic, you bombed?
It was painful. I really just wanted to get off the stage.
Torture, right? Yeah, it's hard to. How did you come back with it? Keep going at it, or what?
You just keep going. Just because I just have sort of this mindset of failure is not. It's not a failure unless you learn from it. Right. Mm-hmm. So even with every bombing, sometimes I would go back and I would watch the videos. I was like, why did I bomb? Why did I do this? And then sometimes I would just practice the same set. Sometimes I would ask someone. Mm-hmm. But especially when I was starting out, there were definitely a lot of bombs and failures, and it took a while to, get a better and better set.
Wow. Well, how do you deal with when you go into? I mean, I'm not sure how it is out in San Jose, but in New York, you can walk into a open mic with 30 guys and you're the only girl.
Oh, it's the same thing.
And on top of that,
it's a sausage party 100%. I think, I'm also an engineer in my daily life.
Oh, so
yeah, exactly. I think that was an advantage. I'm used to just walking in and just dig here, dig there, dig there. Okay, cool. Right. There's just a bunch of Richards in the room. Right. I'm used to that. And I think that really helps me keep a focus. But sometimes it does get to me, especially because there's been some interactions from other comedians where I remember starting out, I wasn't really welcomed into the community. I was definitely didn't, I wasn't welcome, even though I'd been at it for a few months, whereas other people that I saw had literally just started. All the guys were talking to them. It was oh yeah, here's an open mic here and there and there and there. It's like I have to prove that I'm funny, whereas another guy gets the benefit of the doubt and can kind of get into the system easier.
Yeah, I call that the shutting us out theory. And I used to get it too. And especially, I don't know. I mean, everybody turned out to be nice, but I've been in rooms where sometimes I have to fight for my voice. And especially as an African-American woman, definitely have to fight for your voice because they're women are not funny. And then African-American women, what could you possibly have to say that would be funny? So, but funny is subjective, right? So while you may not think I'm funny, there's 5 people over there that think I'm hilarious. So it's, I never can say to somebody, oh, you're so corny, you're horrible, because if that's what they really believe and you really think that this is your thing, then who am I to I don't know, who am I to judge? Until you've been 15 years in the game or 10,000 hours, whatever it is, it's all a guess anyway,
Yeah. I don't think I got really, there was, I think, a few incidents that got me respecting the community. One, it was just like, I remember there was a time where like comedian after comedian after comedian was bombing. And then I went up and like, I was telling stories about my bras and all this other struggles. And then like everyone, I basically brought the room back. And then that got me a lot of respect. And it happened a couple more times. And then people were like, okay, she's actually a comedian. But like, it's hard fought, Yeah.
What do you think about women in general in comedy, black or white?
We need more. We need more. But it
really isn't, is it?
Yeah. I would say there's probably like it's a 10-to-1 ratio. Yeah.
Where I live, I'm up in Westchester County, which is 45 minutes from New York City. So when I would go to a mic in the city, especially in the village, I would notice it'd be like, I'm not kidding, like 30 guys, and I'd be the only girl, much less only African American. And then depending on which room, if I go like, maybe if I went to one like in Harlem, maybe that would change, but I didn't really know. It was only 2 mics I knew of in Harlem, so that's probably why I didn't do that. But it's really weird. I mean, I don't mind. See, I used to model in the 80s, so I have no problem with people staring at me in a bad or good way. Like it doesn't make me uncomfortable. Like some people would be really, it can be really, I've had people at a show one time I did at Broadway and the guy's sitting there like redhead, cutie cut. He was a cute guy too. He was sitting there like this. No matter what you say, it won't be funny. And I was like, and then finally I said something that made him laugh and he didn't want to laugh, but I made him laugh and I was so happy. And I
love that.
You got your money's worth with at least one little smirk. And so he started laughing and then he was okay. But I don't know. It's a interesting thing, interesting field to be in for women, but especially as an African American woman. And I know people get sick of hearing that, but unfortunately, right, that's the world we live in. Like I don't want to have to be a black comic because that's like stupid. It's like if you're funny, it doesn't matter what color you are, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have seen tons of shows where I'm like, don't you put anybody black people on your show? Or
right. Or like, I remember the funniest thing was like right after George Floyd passed away, there were all these comics like, yeah, we're raising money for BLM. Yeah. And then like I look at their like 8-person lineup and it's like 8 guys and a white girl. I'm like, oh really? Like you think that Black Lives Matter is just about police? That you're not gonna look at yourself and inward and figure out like what's the problem with your lineup? Like
you're not. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, I always say your what you do speaks for itself. So you don't ever have to tell me that I have a black friend or I have a white friend. What are you doing when you produce your shows? Are your shows diverse? Because mine are. I know mine's. I'd make sure mine's are diverse. And since a lot of them very rarely hire African Americans as headliners, I try to do that too if I can. I try to balance that because if you're funny, you're funny. I really don't care about your color. I just want to balance it so that anybody's watching, especially young people, when they're watching, they won't be able to say, well, there's always only black headliners, or only white headliners, or only Indian headliners. That's all there is in this life. I want them to say, that's just a headliner, period.
Yeah. So I agree. Like, I think on my shows early on, I made this, it's like an unofficial rule, but like the majority of my headliners are women, especially women of color, because I know so many women in comedy. It's crazy that they kill at every single show. They're professional. They're amazing. And then I barely ever see them headline. But then I can see the same guys that are like, I would say mediocre, or like not as good. And they're headlining. And I'm just like, why don't we get the opportunities? Like, I'm like, if this is the best person on your lineup, why isn't she headlining? Right. And then I just made it a point, like most of my, like I've had male headliners, of course, but like I try to like, I'm like, okay, this is the best female comedian I know. You're going to headline the show. You're going to headline. Because like you said, representation matters. And I've been trying to also, I mean, I do have specialty shows where like I've had all black women or all black people. I have one that's like all Mexican heritage coming up, Dia de los Muertos. But every one of my shows is usually like I try to cover as many ethnicities as I can, orientations, and like even neurodiversities and abilities. So it's like I try to make sure that there's some representation, and I'm still working on it because like there's not a many Native comedians, and so I'm trying to find more. And there's and I found a good source, but there's also, you know, like I'm trying to be as inclusive as I can and like try to fill in the gaps where I'm missing.
Good for you. That's because I was going to ask you. You segue right into it. What led you to producing shows? Yeah.
Partly the pandemic. So I'd already planned on like starting my own outdoor showcase, but then when the pandemic hit, I was like, we're not going to get over this in a month, because people kept saying like, oh, it'll be a few weeks. And I was just like, and I just kind of looked at the news and I looked at the fact that no one was like social distancing. I'm like, no. So like I think I had one of the first shows, or actually the second ever comedy show in the Bay Area. I started it a few days after the pandemic, and then it's been the longest running show with the CCC. But I think part of the drive is I've been having so many conversations with people about how I hate the current comedy system. Like, I don't want things to go back to normal in terms of comedy, because normal means, again, 10 guys, 1 girl, right? And there's not enough ethnic representation and disability. So part of the reason that even wanted me to form this company is I wanted to showcase all these voices that don't normally get heard. Right. I want to change how comedy is seen in the Bay Area. Like, I'm showing the best of the best, and the best is diverse. It's not just like one white guy. It's not just like one white girl. It's like, you know, all these ranges of voices and people and backgrounds.
Yes, and stories, and that's why I wanted you on the show, because I love the fact that you produce. And also there's I see you have a CCC comedy show. It's a show where comedians heckle each other.
Yes.
We did. Frank Pellegrino did that at Lucy's in I think it was at Lucy's in Pleasantville years ago. He did this, and I was like, oh, come on, we're not gonna be a show where we're gonna heckle. But it was the most. This is when I first started comedy, like 5 or 6 years ago. So it was like, oh my God, you want me to get heckled? Like, I didn't even start getting comfortable with the stage yet. And when he did it, I was like, that's actually, I think it was JC or Frank. I'm not sure who started it, but it was awesome, because I can honestly say, if you're just starting and you go to a heckler's mic, good luck with that. But guess what? Come out like this. Yeah, I'm ready.
I agree. I definitely think that show has improved my riffing skills to like here, right? And then like my crowd work to like here, right? Which was something I really wanted to work on, because before I was really just like more tied to my material. Now it's like my material, but then I could pull from different places and my thoughts. But that part of the heckle show was that I wanted it to be interactive, because I've been to so many Zoom shows where like someone goes on for 10 minutes and like halfway through you just kind of lose your attention, or like, you know, you kind of start eating cereal and then like not paying attention. But I'm like, if there's a lot of back and forth between different people, it's fun for the audience to watch that, because they don't know what's going to happen. And it's kind of fun for the community, because it also creates a conversation while we're doing our sets.
Okay, so wow, that's amazing. I just love that. That's so you are let's see, CEO. Now, how did I say Overlord of
Bangu.
Bangu. Oh, regular English. Bangal. Production. Is that Cameroonian? What is that?
Yeah, so Bangu is the name of my grandmother's village, right? I think in Cameroon we identify by not only ethnic group, but like, you know, where on the maternal side our grandparents came from. And then the actual print, if you ever see it, it's like this really blue, nice motif. It is the motif of my ethnic group, the Bamileke people, right? So I wanted something that like really represented my family and kind of my story. I just kind of live a little imprint in America or the Bay Area. Like, the village is here, like the village is here, like we're here, and we're trying to make something different.
That's awesome. I just found out I have Cameroon too. Nigerian, but Cameroon, a little pinch of Somalia. Us Americans are like, we're like the. I won't say that; it might sound offensive to somebody. You know, we're the. You know. We don't have just
all over the mix.
Right. We got a lot of tribes. Kenya. I'm representing all of the tribes. I was like, dang, how did I get so many? But I forgot your DNA pulls from your grandmother, your grandfather, your mother, your father, your ancestor. So you got, it's crazy. But Cameroon, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. That's awesome. So I was just excited because one of my friends who teased me, it's like, oh, you're African American. I was like, it's still African, duh. It's just I've been born in America, and they tease us. And so so now I can go back and say, listen, I'm 85%. Don't play with me. Don't play with me, okay? Don't even try it. It's funny. But, we were born here, so we say American. So it's all good. Either way, it's all good. So tell us about, you centered on how do you say Big Pop? Big Pop and March.
Yeah, so BIPOC, rather than saying people of color, I mean, it was something I learned recently. So BIPOC is like Black, Indigenous, people of color. And it specifically starts with Black and Indigenous first, because it's kind of trying to recognize the minorities that have been most oppressed in our system. We all know racist, like everything is racist. Like everything is racist. Like, as we've seen with, with police brutality and with our healthcare system and our criminal justice system, Black people experience it the worst, as well as Indigenous people. So that's pretty much what I like to focus in on my company, right? Like we're centering around people of color, but even venues that I'm trying to work with for outdoor shows, I'm trying to pick small Black owned or Latinx owned businesses as much as I can, because I want to give back to that community. I'm trying to make sure that everything in our supply chain, or maybe not our supply chain, but like everything in how we're producing it, the money stays in our community, and the money goes to people that, like I'd rather give my money to the mom down the street than to some corporation or some like chain of restaurants.
So when you started this, the production companies, was that so that you changed the narrative for women, and to make a vehicle and a voice for yourself and other people?
Yes, for women, people of color, and other people. So, I mean, I only started the company 2 months ago, but I've been doing the work for like 6-7 weeks, 7 months, however long the apocalypse has been.
Right.
But
really?
but yeah, but I mean, through the company, following George Floyd, I basically ran this 6-part series on racism. So on the CCC show, I had comedians that were all white, and then comedians that were all Latinx, and then all South Asian, like of different ethnicities every week, all discussing racism, right? And it's kind of counterintuitive, but it was more like I wanted other ethnicities to be talking about racism, just to kind of show that it's not just, first I wanted to give Black people a break, because I mean, every Black person I knew was just exhausted and tired. But the other thing is that like, there's a different understanding of racism among different ethnic groups, among different people. And I kind of wanted to like bring that out and address it head on, right? So even the comedians did their sets, and like, a lot of them were like very well read, but then for people that like, oh, they said something wrong, I basically immediately challenged it, but not in a confrontational way, but in like, oh, this is the facts, this is the information, which helps not only them, but like everyone that's watching. So we had like probably over thousands of views from like all those 6 videos, and we raised around $1,100 for different Black Lives Matter charities. Like, so that went to the Police Anti-Terror Project in Oakland that works to defund the police. That goes to the East Oakland Burrito Roll that actually feeds the homeless, primarily brown and Black people in East Oakland, but really everyone. That went to the TGIP Justice Initiative, so that transgender variant and intersex project that does that pretty much tries to help people of those genders within the criminal justice system and outside of that system. And then one more that I can't remember, but like just all BLM associated in like different aspects. And like we're still kind of we're still raising money for BLM through our shows. It's just now we're picking the Afro-Urban Society, which is supporting Black creatives and Black owned businesses in Oakland. So for the most part, all these charities, we did one for for bailing out protesters. We did that too.
Well, now that's interesting. Now that one, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Now I never know what how like right now on the news, it's hard to find facts for anything pretty much. A lot of stuff is just I don't even know how to, I used to know how to fact check. Now I'm like, what is really a fact check? Because it all goes by what the media that you're listening to, whoever their owner is, what their theory is. You know what I'm saying? So I can't just randomly say, I don't believe in this, because they'll say fired, right? So, so I always wonder, I had read something on Black Lives Matter. And then I was like, that can't be true. And then I went to the website and I said, well, I don't know. What do they stand for exactly? It was what my major question was. Everyone asked me all the time. And I'm like, well, they stand for the equality and the justice of African-American people. Then I went and looked on their site. And then I don't know, from what I read, I don't know. It said the wording was different for me. It was very different. So, but I wanted to hear, I stand for the equality in lives of, you can't say just Black men, because for all African Americans.
Yes. Thank you.
African Americans. So that's important. But I could not find, how do I say it? You know, you read something and you're not sure if it's exactly what I'm hearing over here as to what I'm reading. And that's where my issue was. Like, wait a minute, before I go and put my way out, I got to know exactly what you mean by this, because some people say that they support LGBTQIA, the alphabet community. Right, and they need to be represented. So that's not the issue. But for the George Floyd moment that was happening, I felt that that was, I don't know. I didn't hear the same message, and I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I
why are Black men getting strangled with the knee and shot versus, oh, I was transgender and I was beaten up and shot and killed or whatever, and now the focus is on them and they took it off of the initial thing, which was sort of like, how about this? Sort of like the civil rights movement. It was about us getting our rights to vote, blah, 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 right? And then by the grace of God, because of other people marching with us, white women got to go to work. They weren't allowed to go to work before that. But because of the civil rights movement, they said, well, I'd rather have the woman in the job place than to hire them. And so that's kind of how that happened. That's how I felt when I hear general BLM. I'm not talking about just, I support them, but I'm saying why I have to stop and make sure I'm saying the right thing, because or I'm supporting the right person, things, or whatever, because I've been hearing another message when I read something else. So I'm not.
Yeah. I guess I'll go like very, you said a lot, so let me try and talk.
I'm sorry. And I know you're not for such organization either.
Yeah. I think the best way to understand it is the Black Lives Matter organization does not represent all that is Black Lives Matter. It's not the totality of it. Okay. Black Lives Matter is best to be thought of as like like a bunch of independent organizations that are each tackling a different issue that all have the root of racism, right? So like if you could imagine like just a tree, right? And then the tree has all these different roots of like, one root will be like the criminal justice system. The other one will be healthcare. The other one will be, transgender violence. The other one, like all these different branches, right? But then Black Lives Matter is just like, trying to attack every root individually, but it's still the same tree of racism, just manifested in different ways.
See, now why can you have been a spokesperson? Because that and that will make me say, shut up and just pay attention. Because that's the best ever. Like, and hands down, like, I hope my viewers, I hope you guys have been listening to that, because that is that's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, if I could go further. Yeah, if I can go further, I think that it was started probably like a lot of people point to the death of Trayvon Martin as like the real catalyst to the founding of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think it's been 8 or 10 years. Right. And I think at the moment, sorry, how do I think of this? It does have a problem in that it's been overly focused on Black males, because as we know, Black females also get murdered, and Black transgender women and transgender men also get murdered at like staggering rates, but they're never discussed, partly because of the patriarchal system that we live in, that, you know, it still values cis male people over all these other people. The difference is like, now we're talking about Breonna Taylor, but again, like, you know, no one burned down a building for Breonna Taylor, and her killers more or less got off scot-free and got charged with the drywall, right? And no one ever talks about Tony McDade or any other transgender victims. So it's still focus primarily on cis people and primarily on men.
Right.
So that is the problem. And I think that in terms of like the optics, that's what it is. But I think in terms of activism, I've seen a lot more activism for those that have been left behind as well. So I feel like now versus 10 years ago, there is more focus on those people, but it might not be getting more mainstream attention.
Well, that's true. But you know what I think, and this is where I think people that go a little bit left go left, is because the focus of the Black men being killed is not technically because he's a Black male. It's because that is the way to procreate. So you go with the eugenics theory. Okay, that's what the lady who started Planned Parenthood, and that we need to get rid of these people and we don't want them procreating. If you go with that theory, that is where it became like, whoa, wait a minute. Why are all those young Black boys being killed or put in jail? This does not make sense.
No, I mean, I definitely.
So the theory was that Soros backed them and funded them only because he's part of the eugenics theory that says we don't want any more. So it's perfect for him to do, the other community, because then you don't have to worry about procreating, just adopting maybe, but no procreating. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at the founding of Planned Parenthood, I know I think what is it, like Susan B. Anthony, I don't know, some lady, some white lady, she primarily gave birth control as well as sterilization methods in brown and Black communities. And for some people, it's like, yes, they gave agency, but there is like sort of this other train of thought that they were doing this in order to reduce the Black population. Yeah. If we look at the prison industrial complex, that's pretty much what it is. Like 1 out of 10 Black males are actually in prison, and there is a very real school to prison pipeline that exists. And it is all done to destabilize the Black family and the Black community, right? So, I mean, that doesn't, yes, we should definitely focus on that. And yes, that definitely deserves attention, but I think it should be a yes and rather than a yes or. I think that's my only qualm with the movement. And then back to the civil rights movement that you mentioned, I like to think of BLM as like civil rights is the only way that things trickle up in the economy. If you give civil rights like the most disenfranchised, vulnerable group, like a Black, disabled, transgender women, veteran, every single other group in America gets those rights automatically, which is why I also like to tell people Black Lives Matter is not only for Black lives, but like if you give the lowest members of society or the people that they consider the lowest, especially with how we're treated in society, the rights, then it also applies to those above. Right. Civil rights, but was also very calculated, right? Like Rosa Parks was chosen. There was another lady that like, I think a few months earlier had like sat on the bus, but she was darker skinned. And they're like, you know what? We need someone that kind of looks like a white grandma so that they can sympathize. And, optics are a big role, but I think it's harder to control optics and to have that sort of unified message when we are 380 million people ish. And we not only have TV, because back then it was TV and radio. Now we have TV, radio, social media. So it's like, it's really just the news spitting whatever they want, and then activists are trying hard to combat that image. But there is a really big problem of my facts versus your facts, even though facts are facts.
Yeah, it's become a crazy thing now at this point. Literally, I have tried to research some things, and everything I got to that would normally the norm to have as a fact checker is no longer a fact checker. So I'm like, great. I mean, I had a guy tell me today that my CNN, watching something on CNN was not legit. I was like, dude, if that's not legit, then we're just done. We're not going to have.
No, I 100% agree. CNN, because I 100% agree. I've seen so many of the CNN reportage, especially of the protests, and I just kind of look at it. I'm like, this is not what's happening. This is not what's happening. Because like I was also watching some of the live streams of the protest and like reading, and I'm like, it's not. I think a great example was when they were saying that Cassandra Ocasio-Cortez, like AOC, endorsed Bernie Sanders at the Democratic National Convention. Everyone's just like, oh my God, why is she doing this? Or why isn't she backing Biden? And then it was just like, no, it was a misleading title. What actually happened is that it's normal for a candidate to get X amount of votes to be endorsed, even though they're not going to be claimed the nominee in a convention. And she was specifically asked to do it by Nancy Pelosi, and she had Like it's not a big deal. It wasn't what they said, but every single news outlet was like AOC endorsing the door, and I'm just like, you're purposely misleading people to get a headline.
Exactly.
So there's
it's all everything right now is about what for me, like, so what can I get out of this? Even the presidential election, the debates, it's all ridiculous. I was like, dude, I don't care about the fly on little snake man's head. Could you please just swat it off and tell me what you're going to do for us? That's what I want to know. Like, it's like everything. So with that being said, forget them. I want to tell us about you have like 5 shows you're producing. So that's more important than about some people are going to be there and they're going to do what they do. But it's our job to make people laugh and forget about that. So, or inform them, one or the other. So, I had so many more questions. I can't believe that the time is up already.
I know. I love talking to you.
I have to have you on again because this is crazy. So what? I guess one of my summary questions. Now, I had like 8 more. Darn it.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You're such a great guest. Like I can talk forever. Which I shouldn't. What are your events coming up? I know you have like 5 events coming up. Tell us about that.
The ones that I remember. Okay, so I am producing 2 upcoming shows. So one of them is the CCC show, Dia de los Muertos special. I'm really excited about that one. It's Thursday, October 28th, so the last Thursday of the month. Okay. And I think what we're doing is the entire lineup is going to be Mexican and Mexican Americans because it's their culture. Like, why not have them talk about their culture? I won't be hosting because I'm not of that culture. But what we're doing is at the start of the show, in Dia de los Muertos, they have something called like ofrendas, and they also, which is like kind of like offerings to the dead. But what we're doing is we're saying, hey, if you have anyone that passed away this year, if you want any words, like a moment of silence, send it to me either during the show or before the show, and we can just, say it out loud as like a, hey, we're honoring the dead, kind of like a moment for us to honor the dead before we start the show. And then the next day is our all-star comedy show, Halloween special. So these are the best of the best of the best in the Bay Area comedians. They're literally the best. Like all of these people have been on Amazon Prime, SF Punchline, like everywhere, right? And for this Halloween special, I'm telling people, go ahead and dress up if you want to. If you don't, then you can always pick your favorite Halloween background, virtual background, just to make it fun and festive. And the comedians are going to be telling spooky stories. And by that, I mean a time where they were scared shitless, either because their mom caught them doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, or they like took the cars on a joyride, whatever it is. But it's going to be a fun show. And I'm going to be on a show next Friday called Okay So Like. Friday, I think at 8 p.m. And then I'm on another show Thursday, October 27th. So I'm on a show next Friday.
You're a busy woman. Well, how do people reach you? Do they go to your Facebook page or your Instagram? What is your gram?
It is, I think the best way to find all these shows is on my Instagram at Cynthia In Public. I also on Facebook at Cynthia In Public. But if you want to know both my shows personally as well as the shows from my company at Cynthia In Public, and then from there on, you can also find the link to my company because I usually repost.
Okay, got it. So I just wrote it. I wrote it down too. But I thank you so much. I cannot believe time has gone so quickly. And we will have to have you back for sure. And we will talk all things women in comedy. I'll have you up with a couple of girls I'd like to have on and do like a women comedy discussion or something. So we'll get that going. But in the meantime, for viewers, I can't believe time has gone so quickly. I thank you guys so much for watching On the Town. I'm your host, Tanya. I will see you guys on Thursday for my living room chat. Oh, we got a lot to talk about at 8 p.m. And I want you to save the date, October 29th, for Foster Kids Unite's 2nd annual comedy Zoom fundraiser. We did a good job. We raised over $1,000. Woo, woo, woo. You guys are the bomb. We thank you. So help us reach our goal. We're trying to reach 3,000. We raised over 1,000 so far. So we can do this. All right. I'll see you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Tanya. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun because you're fun.